So I'm on the road right now, traveling for work, and I decided to bring a game with me that I've had sitting around that I didn't even actually mean to buy. It came actually with something I bought a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, but it's a very slim like form factor. You're seeing the entire game right here in front of me, and it seemed interesting, and so I brought it with me because it fit in my bag pretty easily, and I've been meaning to try it and play it. It is called Balck Friday, the Tatsinskaya Raid, December 1942. These were battles along the Chir River, sort of around the relief of Stalingrad. On the East Front during World War II, and it is Balck Friday, not Black Friday. It's a little bit of a pun. Hermann Balck, obviously the commander of the German forces in this particular part of the conflict. And this is a game that came in Against the Odds magazine number 48, which I actually purchased for the other game that came in that magazine, which was about the rise of Islam in the 7th century. But I didn't know that the magazine also came with this little bonus game. And so I've had it sitting around for a while. You can see here's the rules of play that came with the magazine, and it is a measly 4 pages of rules. Pretty simple game, but it looks pretty robust as well. And I want to give it a shot. Oh, God, I've just ruined the reinforcements. Okay, and I want to give it a shot. So as you can see here, we've got the map. It is a single 8.5 by 11 sheet. We've got a turn track down the left side. We've got a victory point track down the right side. It is a chit pull game, so we're looking at drawing chits from a cup to activate the units on the map. We've got Soviets and we've got German units. We've got a random events table, a terrain effects chart, and a unit ID. You will play this with a D6 or 2. I wish I had 2, but I only have 1 with me. And it doesn't appear to be too complicated, and there's some interesting stuff going on here in regards to what we're trying to do. So first of all, the Soviets here are around Tatsinskaya airfield. There's a Hill 175 is in here. We've got the Germans set up along this rail line. We've got some Germans down here, and this way is north, so we're looking at a west-east sort of dichotomy here. Some of these units are starting entrenched, which I was allowed to do as part of the setup. And essentially what we're trying to do is we're trying to defeat enemy units and capture specific points on the map. Every turn that the Russians have control of Tetsinskaya, they're going to score 2 points, so the Germans are going to want to try and drive them off of that. And the Germans, they have got probably the better units. Now, this is a game that is sort of it feels grand tactical based on the way the rules are written. You are actually, when you attack, you're not attacking from a hex to a hex. You're attacking with a unit to against another unit. There's opportunity fire if you move Zoc to Zoc, which is kind of interesting. I'm not sure what exactly the size of the units are. It's I don't know that it's specified anywhere. We do have larger overall formation, so we can see here we've got 11th Panzer up here. Famously defeating the Soviets historically, or at least keeping them off balance and away from sort of their goal. We've got Soviet guards. There's tank units, mobile units. There's also infantry units. We've got some anti-tank units here. And the values that you're looking at here are going to be the armor factor is the first value. The infantry factor is the value second, and then the movement factor. And what you're doing is it's kind of like a block game. You're trying to roll a target number based on who you're attacking, which is kind of interesting. It's designed by Paul Rohrbaugh, which I'm not the biggest fan of his designs. I've played several games by him, and they all really kind of fall flat for me. But I'm willing to give this one a shot because I do like chit pull, and I can probably play this while I'm in my hotel room with some downtime. And so I just want to show it off a little bit. I don't know if I'm going to play through the whole thing. I don't even know if I'm going to take you in close to the action like I do normally in my videos or give you an after-action report, but I figured I would just show it off. I might play a couple turns and let you know what I think of it. Again, this comes in Against the Odds magazine number 48, 4-page game system, and yeah, let's get crack on with this and let's see how it feels. I guess one thing I should mention here is that there is a supply attrition mechanic, so the Germans are going to be drawing supply from these hexes here all around these edges of the map. The Russians are going to be drawing supply up here from this edge of the map. Supply lines mostly have to follow roads, although there is an exception for each side. There's a certain number of hexes that don't have to be roads. One of the weird things about the setup, these entrenched units here in the center are German, and they're allowed to start entrenched. But one of the weird things about it is that for those particular entrenched units, they just have to start south of hex row 25 and not adjacent to any Soviet unit. But by default, that's allowed me to place some of these German units in places that are cutting the supply line for these Russian units. And it's a really interesting start because that is going to trigger attrition almost immediately. for this group of units. And you might say, well, why don't these units move up and just clear the road of that unit? These units are not allowed to do that until turn 9. They must stay within 2 hexes of here or here. And so they're not going to actually be able to reach that junction and crossroads. So it's going to take a relief effort from the Russians up here to clear the way so that these units can get into supply. And there's victory points on the hoof for the Germans if they can eliminate units in this grouping. It seems like the strategy is going to be to just make sure that you hold this road at all costs against the Russians, and just watch these attrit and fall away. We'll see what sort of practically it means, but yeah, we are starting the game with sort of an out of supply situation here, and that may be intended. I don't know enough about this conflict and what happened to know if that's true or not. But I do know that the Russians want to hold this town and they want to get back into supply as quickly as possible. And the Germans, they don't have as many units, but they have the better units, and they're probably going to want to press their advantage against some of these clusters of Soviet forces. These are Soviet up here. They are also entrenched. And so it looks like we're really going to be battling over these roads and these rail lines. And the Russian player may have some limited counterattack capabilities. The game goes 13 turns. On turn 9, we are going to free up this grouping of whoever's left, and they're going to be able to move freely if I make it that far. We've got different chits in the cup. We're going to have some random events. There's also air support and artillery support markers that each side is going to have. So the Germans start with 2 air support and 3 artillery, and the Soviets are starting with 2 artillery. These can basically be used as an attack against a unit anywhere on the map that you don't have to have units next to. So maybe that's one of the ways we can clear this road. We can have the Soviets launch an artillery attack against this particular unit. So that's Balck Friday real quick. Let's get started, and we'll see how long this video goes. All right, so just a quick, as I'm going through the first turn here, we can see the chits that have come out. We had 11th Panzer activate. They've moved up. When you activate a unit in this game, you can either move its full movement allowance, or you can move half its movement allowance and fire at half strength, or you can fire if you're adjacent to someone. So there's no like ranged attacks in this game, even though it does feel grand tactical. You can try and entrench, or you can try and rally a unit that's disrupted. I chose to move with full movement with the 11th Panzer and kind of spread them out. Try and make a nice sort of like pincer formation here to try and keep the Russians off balance, defend the protected supply situation. And one thing I do need to do is put a out of supply for all of these units down here. They're all out of supply right now. I'm going to attempt right now on the Soviet turn. I got 1/3 of my units could activate. So there's 18 Soviet units. I can activate 6 of them. We had 2 move up here, 2 move up here, and then we had 2 start to move down from the south to try and break open this road. I am going to use one of my artillery markers here, and I have to do it within 3 of a Russian unit. So I'm going to do it here. And it's pretty simple. We look at the terrain that this unit is in. And by the way, these artillery markers have a strength of 3, so we're trying to roll 3 or less, I believe. And so we look, he's in open terrain, but he is entrenched, so it is a +1 to my die roll. And let's see what we get. I rolled a 1. I believe that's going to do a hit. And when you do a hit to a unit in this game, you don't actually reduce their steps first, you disrupt them. They were to take another hit, then they would flip over to their reduced side. I believe this might be a 1-step unit. No, it is a 2-step unit. So good positioning by the Germans there. So we've got a disrupted entrenched unit. We've used that. Now I could do another artillery, and if I get a hit, then I would then flip him over. I would undisrupt him and flip him over to his reduced side. But I don't know that I want to do that there. I may want to actually use my artillery against this German tank unit here, because that would be pretty hard hit, a really good unit. So let's, or I could save it for future activations. I don't know. I'll think about it. All right, came to the end of the first turn. Here's the turn order of the chits that got pulled. Russians took very heavy end of turn attritional losses because their supply line is blocked. Most of these stacks got 1 or 2 units flipped over to reduced immediately. I'm not sure exactly how you're supposed to combat this as the Russian. It seems like they're going to lose a significant portion of this force over the course of the early game, unless you're constantly trying to rally and recover them. Because they do get a chance for recovery at the end of the turn, which I guess I haven't done. Reduced in-supply units, in-supply, yeah, so they can't recover. I guess they can attempt to rally on the Russian turn when they draw that chit. I'm not sure. I feel like this is a very Paul Rohrbaugh thing where like he doesn't think through some of the implications of his design decisions. We'll see how it goes. Okay, so we're moving on to turn 2. We're going to get some Russian reinforcements coming in, these 2 units. I got to roll to see which one of those comes in. So starting on the night turn, turn 2, we roll a die. If it's even, we get the T-34. It is odd, so we actually get the good reinforcement. The T-34 is that one. So this is going to stay on the turn track, and we're going to roll for it in future turns. But we do get this unit. Let me focus that. We do get the T-70. It arrives at 2902, which is up here. Soviet entry hex with any activation marker. So the Soviets are going to get to choose an activation marker that comes into the cup this turn, which is pretty nice. Okay, so then at the beginning of the turn, we're going to roll to see how many air... oh, and I didn't make any artillery attacks with the Germans. I should probably do that. Let me do that real quick. So just as a conclusion to this game, as I wrap up, I don't have time to finish the whole thing. I made it through turn 2. The Germans continuing to press their advance to the west. A lot of losses, especially down here from attrition to all these out-of-supply Soviet units. We were able to get some units in position on this turn to attack this unit to open up the supply lines, but of course the German 21st Panzer, or 11th Panzer, excuse me, they can just move in here and block it off. So the Russians would have to reposition a little bit. They did recover this assault unit. There have been some combats back and forth here that have caused losses. Germans in a pretty commanding position. It feels very difficult to win as a Russian player. Couple impressions of this. It's kind of interesting that you attack a specific unit. You can target within a hex specific units you want to attack. So there's some interesting choices to make there about what you're trying to degrade. Because you disrupt the unit before they take a step loss, and disrupted units come off at the end of the turn automatically, you're incentivized, if you do a hit with your attacks, to then pile on the artillery and pile on the air support to try and get that step loss, because if you can do that, you can push the unit further towards elimination. Speaking of elimination, here's a bunch of these units that attrited this turn for the Soviets. And the Germans, they're doing really well. They did lose a unit down here, one German casualty here from some Russian counterattacks. One thing that's difficult is in order to recover unit step losses, they have to be units that didn't move or didn't get fired at, or didn't get hit with an enemy attack, and it's really hard to keep track of that. You could probably turn counters sideways, but it's a lot of really frustrating bookkeeping to figure out who is able to recover or attempt to recover at the end of a turn versus who was hit this turn. It's kind of fiddly and not very intuitive. I did get a random event this turn, and that is Stalin listens to reason. So one Soviet Union unit that is out of supply that can trace to Tatsinskaya here will be in supply. I don't know which unit I would do that. Maybe one of these armor units here that we'd want to try and recover this turn. Here's the turn spread, by the way. Got a die roll of units, roll a 6 on that. Got six more units here. Got all of my units here, and then the Germans interspersed. It's a fine little fun game, that you could probably play in like an hour and a half. I don't know. There's a lot of die rolling for a lot of different things, which is typical of Paul Rohrbach designs. That it makes it a little mechanically involved in a way that is not necessarily fun. You're just rolling a ton of dice every turn to see who recovers and who's on your attacks. I wish the game had a CRT, not gonna lie. I wish it was hex to hex combat. But it's super not complicated, and if you're traveling and in a hotel and you want some hex encounter east front, I think it could fit the bill, I guess. I'm not particularly jazzed about finishing this. I'm not really sad about not being able to continue on. I feel like I got a feel for the game, and it's fine. It is definitely a magazine game, a small magazine game that came with Against the Odds, is what I can say about it. I guess if you watch this, congratulations, this is an extremely sort of niche title, and I'm just doing it because I had some time to kill. So anyways, more content on the channel soon.